everyone. I'm going to keep this introduction very short and just to share that Amber Wilkie will talk to us about privacy conscious home automation, and I'm sure she'll cover who she is and what the talk is in the moments that follow. Amber, over to you.
Hello, thank you all for coming to my talk. I actually have somehow oriented my screen that I have no idea how many of you are, which is awesome. I'm Amber Wilkie and I work at GoPuff, a local Philly snack delivery company. Well, we're HQ'd in Philly, but we're all over. I work on all kinds of things, tech. I'm one of those people that dabbles all over the place. And one of the things that I dabbled with this year was home automation. So I will, and that I will say that at Hey Amber Wilkie is where you can find me on the socials of various sorts if you are so inclined. Okay, so why home automation? The short answer is that it's awesome. Probably you are here in this room because you're interested in doing things like turning on your lights with the change of the day, or perhaps you're interested in saying, Alexa, turn the kitchen lights on. We won't get that advanced in terms of like voice. You can get there, but I won't cover it in my talk much. And for me, the reason that I personally got into home automation is because my house was broken into. I moved to this house I'm currently standing in March. Right before, actually it was right after lockdown. We closed like the week before lockdown, and then we moved on the Sunday. Maybe it was like the Monday after the lockdown started. Anyway, so we were here, right? And then the whole city's quiet. And we like the stores are closed and things. So we didn't put up like blinds or like that privacy stuff. So it's really our fault because our bottom floor is like all like the builder put in this glass door that you know, if smashed, a human could walk through, and then that is what happened. And they took my husband's bike, which he left sitting on our bottom floor. So I can't like really fault anything, like we were just being dumb city livers, right? But what happened is that every night we'd like lie in bed and hear like little creaks, or like we live in a row house, so like our neighbors closing a door or something. Like, oh my God, was that our door? Right. So we were not sleeping well. And so we thought like, okay, maybe we need like an alarm system. And so I looked into SimpliSafe, which ends up being like a bunch of door sensors. And then if you pay like $15 a month, then it can hook up to the internet and call the cops if the sensors go off and all this stuff. I was like, this is just overkill. Like I don't, even if like what happened is the guy took a brick, smashed our door, ran in the house, got the bike, and then ran away. Like you could see it on my neighbor's Nest, which by the way, don't do that. So I thought there's like no point in calling the cops for the sort of crime that I might expect to encounter now or in the future. What I really want is to know definitively if someone's broken into my house, and that way I can sleep, right? If like I have, it's binary. Has someone broken into my house? If so, be alert and scared, and otherwise sleep peacefully, right? And so I thought, I don't need all of this. Like I don't need SimpliSafe. What I really need is like a motion sensor and some kind of alarm. And so then I started researching home automation stuff. And that is what led me to put in like my first gadget system. All right, so I'm not following my slides very well, but like, so right, so great. So we'll get an Alexa, we'll get one of the, we'll get a Nest or whatever, it'll be awesome. But maybe not, because what? I haven't done this as presentation mode. Okay, so maybe not, because these systems, it like, I will say that there is not evidence that Amazon and Google and all these people are like taking our data and using it maliciously against it. Not really, but it makes me super uncomfortable that all this data that's generated about me and my life is just sent off to these companies to do whatever the hell they want with. And I will also say that the problem with having an Alexa is, or any of these devices that you allow to then talk to the internet, is that they can download whatever updates they want at any time. So you buy an Alexa, even if you read all the fine print, that can change anytime this little device feels like downloading more software and doing something different with it, right? And then also, like, without knowing the code that's running on these things, or like having some independent verification that the code running on them is not malicious, you really can't trust what's going on. You don't know what's going on. So how can you really have that much faith? You're just saying, I believe Amazon won't abuse my data. Additionally, because your device is connected to the internet, like it could be hacked. There's great potential for that, though I'm sure these companies are well invested in not having your data hacked or not having it intercepted in some way. That's still a potential. If you have 5 devices in your house that could potentially turn on and start recording you, like those are 5 points at which someone could maliciously attack your devices and then get access to your information, right? As this is like, as an individual, I'm not that worried that someone will hear something in my house and be able to use it against me. I'm worried about a collective society being wiretapped constantly. Right, so these are a bunch of clickbaity articles from legitimate news sources, which is just a little bit of why I was not cool with getting an Alexa, even though I like the idea of having this sort of command center for my house. Right, so why open source? Okay, so the main thing is privacy. And the technology that I'm going to talk about is called Home Assistant. And it is focused around privacy and keeping your data with you. The people who build it are very interested in maintaining the privacy of their users. And you can actually read the code if you are so inclined and see everything that it's doing. You can decide when or if it updates. And I just personally trust the community of people that are building this technology over these giant conglomerates who are making money off of it. So I think like the incentives line up correctly. So the people building Home Assistant are incentivized to create good software for themselves that won't send their information somewhere. And Amazon and Google are incentivized to use my data to make money. So like the actual reasons for being are quite different between these two technologies. The technology that I'm going to talk about is more sophisticated than you might anticipate. I was surprised by all the things that it could do as I went on my little journey. Also, it's fun and you learn stuff. So there's cons, of course. So the cons, it's actually like a significant learning curve to get involved. It helps if you're a programmer, though I do believe that you could do this without being a programmer. You need to learn like a little bit of weird syntax called YAML. But other than that, it's just a little bit of following steps, like installing things, do steps ABC. If you have a tech person in your life, grab them and they can help. It's not as smooth, you can't do as much. So again, like the trade-off here, you have a community of people building this stuff, they're doing a great job. Over here at Amazon, you have a lot of engineers getting paid full-time to make these products. So obviously like the Alexas of the world are gonna run smoother than your personal home assistant. And that's a trade-off. I will also say that voice technology is not as far advanced as some of the other stuff I'm going to discuss. We do have some voice set up in our house, but it's quite buggy. When I gave this talk at my work, I demoed it, but I'll spare you guys my living room and my husband. Right, so let's not get an Alexa, let's install open source home automation software. But first we're gonna need a Pi-hole. All right, so a Pi-hole is a little device that connects to your router and basically serves as a filter for all of the internet requests that happen in your house. And I'll explain that here. So I learned quite a bit about DNS going through this process, which has been quite fun, actually. So I think if I click, ooh, I didn't do that. I meant to do that, hold on. There's my router, there it is. I have another tab that I did not open. Okay, oh man, come on. All right, hold on. I'm gonna stop sharing just in case this password ends up on the internet here, because I wanna show you my router. Okay, Now I could share my screen again. My apologies for not being prepared. I think it's this one. And Liam, you could tell me if I'm screwing this up. Otherwise, I will assume it's going well. I'll make that a little bit bigger for y'all. Okay, so this is my router. And basically, anything in my house that's on the Wi-Fi is going to talk first to my router. So if I am on my phone and I'm assuming my phone's on Wi-Fi, so this is not 4G or whatever. So I'm on my phone and I want to go to google.com. The way DNS works is my phone is then going to ask my router, hey, what IP is google.com? And my router actually will probably have this stored in local cache. But assuming this is the first time I've ever talked to Google, then my router is going to ask my ISP, hey, ISP, Internet Service Provider, hey, ISP, what is the IP, that 192, well, locals 192, but whatever, how do I get to google.com, right? And so my ISP is then going to say, okay, if you want to get to google.com, you have to go to this IP address. It tells my router tells my phone, then I go there. So the way Pi-hole works is it actually intercepts that request right before it gets to the router. And it says, oh, like Google is going to allow, right? But if my phone, say, is trying to load an ad, we'll get into the details in just a second, but say I'm, maliciousad.com, it's going to say, oh, maliciousad.com, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not a real web address. So like the request never gets to my router, never gets to my ISP, never gets to the greater internet. So the way, let's see. And then, yeah, so then when I'm in my router, the way that I actually set this up is I'm telling it the primary DNS. So ordinarily this is set default to, I actually don't know what the normal default is. So like you don't have to set this, and you probably never have. Your router likely does not have anything in this box. And your ISP will just serve as it, like it probably automatically gets it. But in this case, I'm saying instead of using whatever you might use in the internet, use this. And so the Pi-hole is going to have a list of blocked addresses. You actually can set it up so that you're saying there's like a good list and only let the good list through, but you don't want to do that because it'll like ruin your internet experience. But there's lots of lists online where you can like upload those into your Pi-hole and say all 200,000 of these sites are bad and I don't want them. And the DNS is just going to say 404. I don't know what that is. Did I need to show my thing? Oh, I just wanted to show that like, it's just sort of cool. Like these are some of the things I learned working on this project. Like just, I've never probably logged into my router before. I probably had no reason to. But you can see like all the things that are attached. Like this is our Sonos, our Chromecast is on here. I have another computer, that's this one. This one's actually my my garage door opener, which we're gonna get into a little bit. You see my Roomba, that's a phone. So like, it's just sort of cool to poke around in here. The Home Assistant itself is plugged into my router. And then I think the unknown is probably the Pi-hole. I'm not sure. Okay, but anyway, like you could see their IPs, you could end up like querying them. It's sort of fun to like get in here and see all this internet backbone stuff that you don't normally think too much about. Okay, back to my slides. All right, so I installed this Pi-hole. I installed this Pi-hole and it immediately started blocking like a lot of requests based on these 200,000 or so sites that I said it could not talk to. On the left, you're seeing my Roomba app. It's actually not mine. This is just a picture from the internet, but my Roomba can talk to the internet, which at first I thought was super cool. Like I could get stats on my house. So I plugged it in and I let it talk to my Wi-Fi and I said, clean my house. And then it created this map, which I saw in my Roomba app. So I thought this is cool. And then I realized that my Roomba is uploading a map of my house to Roomba servers. And I obviously did not read like the Roomba fine print when I started Roombaing. And so I have no idea what Roomba is going to do with this data. And probably nothing that I personally would find all that terrible, but across everyone with a Roomba, getting a map of people's houses seems, it's just not data that I trust Roomba to handle, right? So I have now told Roomba that, or well, actually, so what happens is now Roomba may not send this information to the internet because it's being blocked. So I'm like, with the Pi-hole, I can tell Roomba to go ahead and vacuum and go ahead and try to send information to the internet. But the DNS blocker that I have is going to say, no, you cannot do that. So my Roomba gets to like, I get to control my Roomba without having all of my data ending up in the Roomba servers. So on the right, you're seeing my top block domains in my Pi-hole. So that first one is my garage door opener, which wants to tell its server, is my garage door open, about every like 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds, my garage door is saying, is the garage door open? Let's tell the server, let's tell the server, let's tell the server. So all day long, it's pinging home. Why? I don't know, but I'm glad that it's no longer doing that, right? The next one I circled is my Sonos speaker, which is very interested in sending my listening metrics back to its data server, and I am no longer allowing that. So I wanted to talk about what happens after you install this Pi-hole. On the left, you're seeing an app called Nuzzle, which I super recommend. It aggregates links from your social media so that you can see all the things your friends have shared without needing to like get into the comments, which I find super handy. And it loves to serve ads to me. And it's one of the very few websites I go to that actually gets the ads blocked. The ad companies know that people are out there doing this, and so they rotate their URLs a lot. So I can't say that installing a Pi-hole is going to like significantly improve the number of ads you see just on the normal internet, but every now and then you will like be served an ad, and this is what you'll see. So this is the Pi-hole at work saying, oh, I don't think so. That's not something this user wants to see. Web page not available. Oh, and then this is still in here, which is embarrassing now, but like my own GoPuff app doesn't actually work if I'm on the Pi-hole. Okay, so you're sold. You want the Pi-hole, now what? So the investment you need to make at baseline, if you have a spare like computer sitting around, you can use it instead. But most of us will just buy a Pi-hole kit and a micro SD card. So that's about $100. And you're going to install the Pi-hole using the instructions in the references. I won't get into how that works, but it's very straightforward. You need to download a software that can write to that little SD card. So you do that, and then you install a thing onto that card, and you plug it into your Pi-hole, and it just works. And you will, I want to just show you my Pi-hole. It's probably too small too. This is my Pi-hole dashboard. 31.7% of the internet requests coming from inside my house have been blocked in the past 24 hours. So that means that they were ad sites or tracking analytics. I have 240,000 domains on my block list. And then let's see what's going on today. These are always different, which is interesting. AWS is trying to track me. Split.io is an A/B testing platform. So I always get the A version of everything because I don't know if I necessarily care about this, but it's analytics, so it gets blocked. Segment's probably the same thing. I don't know what push whoosh is. Here's my Sonos again. Google Analytics is always on this list. I don't know what Conviva is. So it's been interesting to go in and see what are all these sites. They're often analytics sites trying to like track my clicks and things on websites. I don't know what Sprout Video is. So anyway, like these lists change a lot. And then you can also see, so the router was listing all of my devices, and over here, if you compare the IP, the local IP of your device, then you can see like how many requests are happening here. So let's see if I can tell you what that 200 is. That is my husband's computer. So his computer has had the most blocks. Anyway, the Pi-hole you can disable, which I personally need to do if I want to work on my GoPuff app. And you can always add domains to this list to block, and you can add domains to allow. I don't know why this Vortex data one is allowed, but all the other ones have only temporarily been allowed to like allow things to go through. And I'll say that every now and then, like there's an annoying thing or like this doesn't work with the Pi-hole, but for the most part, it's been really great. I would say the pros far outweigh the cons. Okay, so that's the Pi-hole. And you needed that because now you're gonna buy a bunch of open source, or not open source, you're gonna buy a bunch of commercial things for your home, Internet of Things, that ordinarily you would just tell them what your Wi-Fi is, and then they would go talk to the internet. And so now your light switch and your plug and your vacuum and your toaster and your refrigerator, all of those things ordinarily are going to connect to your Wi-Fi and then talk to the internet. And you probably need an app to manage each of them, right? I don't actually have that many smart things in my house, but as I understand it, like for the most part, you have like a refrigerator app, and I had the Roomba app, and like GE for all their lights, you have like a different app, right? So that's sort of annoying too. But when you buy all those things and turn them on now, none of them will be able to talk to the internet because you have that Pi-hole in place, right? So you need some other way to control all of this input, and that is Home Assistant. So I did these ones a little bit different, but just to demonstrate that like, now you're just buying another Pi-hole and following the same steps. So total cost for this project, assuming you already have some smart devices, the smart device world can explode very quickly, as I personally found out. But like total cost to set all this up is about $200. All the software is open source. All right, and again, I'm not going to go over like how to install it because there's very clear instructions. I have those in the references. Now you're going to turn on all your smart devices, let them connect to Wi-Fi again because you no longer have to be concerned about the privacy because of the Pi-hole. And then Home Assistant will serve as your command center. Okay, so here's what it looks like. And actually, I have mine open now. And it, wait, where did it go? There it is. Maybe I'll make this guy bigger too. All right, so here is Home Assistant. So I'm showing you the web version, but there are apps for Android and iOS. And those apps look very much like this. In fact, it might be the same exact thing. Yeah, I suspect so. Let me make you bigger. That's not it. All right, so if you're on your phone, it's going to look a lot like this. And these are the inputs, essentially, from all of the devices that I have in my house. So for instance, the fan, I have a smart fan that someone bought us. The level of bedroom dust is currently 2. And I have a weather input, and it's sunny, which is not accurate. And let's see what else. My phone is full of battery, which is probably pretty close to accurate. And then the fan's measuring the bedroom temperature. Not everything that I have is represented here. Actually, there's one I wanted to one of these is a motion sensor, proximity sensor. Okay, so this guy here, proximity sensor, is I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in a second, but I brought this little like 6, it like measures humidity and temperature, and also it's a motion sensor, which is the whole reason I got it. So that's sitting downstairs in my entryway, and currently it senses no motion. But if someone walks by, it actually always registers as 6. I don't know why. It doesn't have a scale. Like this thing was like $50. So it's either nothing or 6. So that's how I've set up all my stuff. It's a Boolean. My little like 10-pound dog sets it off, but it's fine. It organizes things by room. So I called the entryway the laundry room, but so these are all my sensors. The Roomba's in the living room, so I can see that its bin is not full. And it is currently docked. That is true. It is not vacuuming. I have things in the office. Here's the garage door, which actually doesn't register very well in Home Assistant, unfortunately. The fan is on. My burglar alarm. I will talk about this input Boolean in just a sec. Here's my scripts, which I will also discuss, and then I have the weather, right? So here's all the things that I want to see in my little panel. I can do things from here. So these are all executable scripts. And so for instance, this play NPR one, I have written a script that allows me when I click execute, which I won't do because we'll actually start playing NPR for my husband downstairs. It takes my Sonos speaker and it turns it on and sets a volume and tells it to play NPR from the internet. Okay, so that was like just a little tour. What you do with Home Assistant, well, back up just a little bit. So basically your command center, it does two things. It takes input from anywhere on the internet, actually. So I have it pinging it, like it can reach out and do whatever it wants. Nothing can talk to it unless you allow it, which you probably shouldn't. So for instance, it goes and gets the weather. Oh, that's not on the screen, but it can go get the weather and say, okay, so if it's sunny, that's an input. If it's cloudy, if it's raining, these are inputs. And then you write scripts and you have triggers. So the inputs will be triggers, and then that information can be used in your scripts to do things. So for instance, you might have a smart light bulb and it can go and get like the time of day, say, could also be an input. So it could say, okay, it's 6 o'clock. Now the output is to turn on this light bulb. So it's base level, inputs, outputs. All right, so the things that you're going to control with Home Assistant, there are two technologies that work with this. One is Z-Wave and one is Zigbee. In many cases, they are pretty much the same, but you want to choose one for your house because they build on each other. I chose Z-Wave, and I think that the Home Assistant community is like a little bit more on the Z-Wave side. But if you have Zigbee things at home, choose Zigbee. It's well supported on both sides. Okay, so the way that smart light bulbs, smart plugs, and all the other smart sort of smaller things work, like my Roomba has its own thing, your fridge has its own thing, but like all the different plugs and sensors and things, the way they work is a closed circuit radio technology, which I do not fully understand and will not try to explain here, but essentially like your light bulb and your plug can sort of mesh together. They're creating a mesh network that amplifies itself. So the more you have, the stronger your network becomes. And all of these things emit little signals, and you have a little receiver stick that you will then plug into your Home Assistant. And now if your light bulb's saying, I'm on, the little stick picks it up and tells Home Assistant the light bulb's on. And it works the same way. Your little stick can send out to the light bulb and say, turn off, your light bulb turns off. So the way it works if you don't have Home Assistant is you plug the Z-Wave into your router, and then those messages go to the internet, right? But because we're gonna do this in a privacy conscious way, we're gonna plug the stick receiver into the Home Assistant, and then Home Assistant will handle all of those inputs. We never need to talk to the internet at all. I will also say that all of these Z-Wave things, if you decide that Home Assistant is like too annoying and I can't deal with this shit, you can always just plug that stick into your router and forget the whole thing. So I factor that in when I was purchasing these smart plugs and things, because it's not like you're not committing yourself to open source forever. You can use these things as like as a normie in the future if you want. Or you can, decide I'm going to do this piecemeal and keep your Z-Wave stuff talking to the internet, but maybe little bit by little bit, you start moving things over. Okay, all right, so I'm going to talk specifically about something that I've built in Home Assistant and like sort of this is one example, but the example is pretty much how you build everything in Home Assistant. Okay, so I was talking about, it's also just occurred to me that if you have questions, you can ask or post in the chat or whatever, Liam. If people have questions, I'm happy to answer them, like as I'm talking, that's fine too. Or we could talk more at the end. Should have said that half an hour ago, but it's all good. So anyway, my burglar alarm. What I have is I have that little 6-way sensor. When it senses motion, it's going to send that information to the little Z-Wave receiver stick, and Home Assistant will receive the input that there is motion downstairs, as I represent with this little dude. So it detects motion, it sends that signal, Home Assistant receives it, and that input triggers a script to send output to my Sonos speaker. And my Sonos speaker, I have downloaded a really annoying alarm sound from the internet, and I actually am storing that MP3 in Home Assistant, and I just send that to the Sonos. So when the motion signal trigger, the motion detector triggers in Home Assistant this MP3 to play on my speaker. Wah, 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 wah. Okay, how? So on the left is actually inside of my Home Assistant panel. There's a very useful built-in thing called input booleans. I only have one, but you can have as many as you want. And this is saying true, false for literally anything that you want. And so for me, when my husband needs to take the dog out late at night, he needs to turn off the burglar alarm so he doesn't set it off. Even if he does, it's fine. I personally can go, this is actually what we do if he forgets to do that. What do I do? No, I go over here to my Sonos, and then this will be playing, and I can say stop. Because it's just music that's playing on my Sonos. All right, so what does this actually look like in terms of code and scripting? There's a lot here. I don't actually expect you guys to read this, but on the right side in orange is the script. So the whole thing's the script, but like the important part is the orange bit. So I'm saying that on my living room media player, which is that Sonos, I want you to play this MP3 that we downloaded into the Home Assistant server. And you're gonna play that for 30 seconds. So that's like, this is the thing to do. On the left side, I have when to do it. So this is looking for the trigger. Oops. I guess whatever. Anyway, hopefully you guys can see my little mouse moving, and if not, fine. So I have a trigger, and if it's above 6, because it must include, maybe it's 8. It must be 0 and 8. So anyway, I said above 6, like start looking at this, start this automation. Below that, you have conditions. So I have said if it's after 11 and before 6 a.m. and my input Boolean is set to on, then at the very bottom, run the script burglar alarm. And that's what you see on the right. So my Home Assistant receives this trigger. Okay, the numeric state of my multi-sensor burglar is above 6, and it meets these other conditions, then run the script on the right. And so this part of it takes like a bit getting used to. I know that YAML is not like, it's not necessarily like a comfortable format to be reading this sort of thing, but you get used to it pretty quickly, and the forums are very good. This is another benefit of a large open source community, is that everybody's already done all the things you want to do. You could just, go in and copy paste their stuff. And I will say that when you're working with this for the first time, it's white space, it's, what is that called? It's syntactically, anyway, like white space matters. So you do have to like get the tabs right, and like all these little dashes are super annoying to like know where does the dash go versus like the tabbing. But once you figure that out, then you just copy paste it everywhere else to make new scripts. And this is what everything looks like. Like the way you handle all of this stuff is either an automation or a script. And that's actually what you can see in my panel. All of these scripts look like that YAML I just showed you. They're just little YAML files to say what I should do on the various devices that I have. So for classical, KEXP, and PR, these are just play other things on my media that come from different sources. This is actually this Sonos burglar alarm script is the same script that I just showed you on the previous slide. And setting the input to line in is a bit of a hack that we need because we're controlling now the Sonos through Chromecast. So like if Chromecast is playing, turn the Sonos on, and if Chromecast turns off, turn the Sonos off. But then that kind of screws up other things that are not Chromecast. So I will, you know, so there's some annoyance, right? But it's a trade-off. And that is most of what I have. I just have a few like sort of thoughts about what else you can do with this. I'm just taking this screenshot here from the internet. This is someone who has done a much more advanced integration than I have. One of the cool things you can do is allow the Home Assistant to get your phone's location, and it can be very precise. And that's, you may not be able to see it, but there's like little dudes in like the house diagram on this thing. So like Home Assistant can know if you're carrying your phone around, like which room you're in. And so theoretically, if you always have your phone on you, you walk into your bedroom, it can turn on the bedroom lights. You walk out of your bedroom, it can turn them off. So that's the sort of thing you can start getting into if you're like really enthusiastic. But I find it so interesting, the world of inputs and outputs. So the outputs is probably your limiting thing in like how many devices and kinds of devices you can control. But the inputs can be literally anything. You can set up your own server that Home Assistant's talking to. Theoretically, you could put whatever you want on Home Assistant. It's written in Python. But like I would probably feel more comfortable having like a separate web server somewhere that is, you know, maybe I want to turn the light on when there's like a really interesting like breaking news story or something, right? So I could, anything that I can do on the web, I can have my Home Assistant talk to an API and get information, and that can serve as an input. So literally anything on the internet can serve as an input for the outputs of devices in your house. Okay, so the last bullet point I have here is about voice activation. We have installed a speaker in our living room with Raspy. It works sort of. It actually really has trouble with my voice in particular. It does better with my husband's voice, which, surprise, surprise. So he likes it a lot. I still find it pretty annoying because I normally have to say the trigger word many, many times before it will recognize me. The reason we chose Raspy is because it does not send voice data to the cloud. Mycroft is an open source solution that does do that. So I think we would probably have an easier time with Mycroft because it does the processing for voice online. So it's able to like source a lot more data. Raspy is taking literally like our voices and attempting to AI them to figure out what we're trying to say. So that piece is available as an add-on, but if you're like just starting out, I would strongly suggest you work up to that. Use your phone to turn things on and off, automate timing, weather, inputs, outputs, and then the voice thing can come as like a bonus. I do not think that the voice bit is like as advanced as the kind of home module that we've got in Home Assistant. Okay, the other slides are just resources, and I've posted this in the thread, like our channel, so you can look at those at your leisure. And that's my talk.
We have about 5 minutes before the, I guess the talk is officially over. So if folks want to unmute themselves with questions, I think we're all familiar enough with Zoom to avoid stepping all over each other. And I'll ask, oh, here, go ahead, Kristen.
Amber, does your Home Assistant settings preserve the history of your default or your device's activities? And if so, I assume if it does have that option, have you set history settings like specific for devices, or like no history preservation, like what they were doing 30 days ago kind of thing?
I don't know if it has that. Like, I personally have not seen that. So the first thing that comes to mind is that you could always manually record it. So for instance, like any inputs you could be saving to a database somewhere, right? So that's the sort of control you have over your own data. It sounds like the kind of thing that people would be interested in. So there's probably something like, there's a lot of modules you can download and like add-ons for Home Assistant, but I don't personally have that set up. Like I do know though that like you can see you could see the logs essentially as they come in Home Assistant, which is kind of cool. I wonder if I can show that to you. Tunes, developer tools, supervisor maybe, system. Yeah, so like, that's just the system, but okay, so I don't know where it is. It's around here somewhere. But anyway, like you could basically see all the things that are coming in, which is pretty neat and also very helpful for troubleshooting.
I've got a whole slew of questions, but I feel as the moderator, I should be my turn. Anybody?
Sorry, Liam, are you gonna?
Yeah, I'll jump in with some questions. Anecdotally, have you noticed an increase in your internet speed because your IoT is not pinging things constantly?
No. I would just say no, though I have heard like that is supposedly a benefit. But you know, I think I have very fast internet, and I don't think I would notice. It seemed fine before, and it's fine now. But I have like people on the internet say that that's a thing.
And I have a question about rollout across your I'll say family in a general sense. It sounds like your husband, who you mentioned in your talk, is quite tech savvy and quite with the program as far as rolling this out. Mm-hmm. Is there anybody else in your household that might have pushed back and said, why aren't we doing this with the Echo or with Amazon or with Google because it's smoother, faster? And how did you navigate that in kind of a human interaction? I'm thinking about my own family.
Yeah. That is not an issue in my house. It is just me and my indeed tech savvy husband. Yeah. So, I mean, right. So there's another trade-off, but so the part that I was showing, I wasn't even screen sharing when I was looking at these logs. But like the part that shows all the scripts, you can make, so what I would do if I had like less tech savvy people or smaller ones is you can make different dashboards on Home Assistant. And that's probably what I would do, is I would make them their own. And then, you know, it would just be like, turn on video game lights or whatever it is they want. I'm stereotyping children, but so you could give them like just a very specific list of the things that they want to do. That's probably.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Does anybody else have a question? I haven't got another one, but I want to share the mic here. All right, then I'll pipe up again. The things like the Roomba, the big commercially available devices that you have, when you're turning off ping this, share this data, have you experienced any kind of degradation of primary functionality. Like the Roomba doesn't get that one corner of your house anymore because it's lost that map, or the refrigerator light doesn't turn red at 7 p.m. when you want it to, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. No, I have not had any degradation in service. I would say I feel like things have improved because, you know, I've centralized the control of these devices. So my fan has an app, and like I was relying on the Dyson fan app to like work well with my device, right? And the device only has, it has like 3 settings: on, off, like how strong to blow. That's it, right? And so like introducing this third piece of technology that someone had to build and maintain and all this stuff, I feel like makes it worse. Like having Home Assistant manage those inputs, outputs improves things.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, that is officially our time here, folks. I'm going to go ahead and thank Amber one more time, and then I will go ahead and stop the recording.